The humble Dell laptop, often supplied to teachers for their admin and prep, and often preloaded with a fixed suite of programs and permissions, which might make you prefer to work at home on your own gear, which is often more suited to your own needs. Unfortunately, the school-provided laptop comes with strings attached, and that can make your working life harder than it should be. Good machines though, I really like Dell. The problems are twofold really, so software licenses and virus protection. The school authority often buy a software license to make things like Microsoft Office for you. Most people use it so it's preloaded, and buying it in one go saves thousands for the authority. They also don't want your computer to be downloading software from the internet because you might get a virus, and that might mean an expensive repair bill. So computers are often locked down. If that applies to you, you have very little opportunity to set up your computer to support your own personal workflow. If it's your only computer, then you've just got to knuckle down and learn the software and learn how to do it. But for many others, they drive a computer at home, and that's more suited to their own workflows and ways of working, and that's great. They're the lucky ones. But today I want to mention an issue which arises not about the computers, but how you use them, particularly with email, and its file sizes. A teacher friend of mine sent me a file that was too big to go through the email system, and it took us quite a bit of toing and froing to get it going. The email itself was quite tiny, but the attachment was massive, 30 megabyte. A file which is 30 megabyte is not going to go through the standard email system, because usually they have a limit of about 10 megabytes per email. You can have any email can have an attachment to it which is smaller than 10 megabytes, and you can attach documents, photos, movies, whatever you like, as long as they're smaller than 10 megabytes. This particular email was 30 megabytes. Now you can get around that by chopping the file up, or using a large file transfer service like YouSendIt. YouSendIt is a really good service. I thoroughly recommend it. YouSendIt, one word. But when I got down to look at the file itself, it shouldn't have been anything like the size that it was. In fact, it was a very tiny text file, and we managed to get it down to 8 megabytes without too much difficulty. It was only the stuff that was attached to it that was the problem. Now, Microsoft Word is a really good word processor. In particular, it's great at producing documents that contain a lot of styling, like this spec. Lots of headings and columns and tables and paragraphs and fonts and the like. Each heading and page break and table is easily controlled in Word. Page layouts and simple drawings and graphics are a breeze. But the problem is that if you produce a Word document, the person on the other end who you want to email it to has also got to have Word, and it's quite expensive. It's getting cheaper now, but originally, going back in time, it's been a very expensive program, and you couldn't guarantee that the person on the other end had Word. Teachers have all got Word, no problem. But if you were communicating with companies in the Eastern Europe and Africa, there was no guarantee that they were going to have Word. So the way to get around that is to convert your file into a PDF. Now, PDF files mean that you can create your document in Word, save it as a PDF, and then the person on the other end just needs a PDF reader like Adobe Acrobat, and that's free. So it's a really good way of getting your document to people without worrying about whether they've got the right program at the other end. Problem is that a 30 kilobyte file in Word translates to 160 kilobytes of PDF. It's a big file format. So if you are wanting to send documents around, you've got to understand file formats and file sizes, and understand what the processes are and what the software is. So most Word documents are in kilobytes. They are small documents, and any file which is measured in kilobytes is actually really quite tiny. Most Word files, for example, aren't as big as this one. Most Word files are around about 10, 20, 50 kilobytes big, rising to about 100 or 200 if you've got styling in it, graphics and so on. Nothing to worry about those. Kilobytes are great. But once you get to 1,000 kilobytes, that's 1 megabyte. Megabytes can be pretty big, and but you've got to work quite hard to get a Word document to be measured in megabytes. This spec, as I've already mentioned, which is full of styling and full of images and full of graphics, is only 3.6 megabytes. So it's an inch thick. You know, it's a decent document, but no problem emailing this. This is 3.6 megabytes, and 3.6 megabytes, funnily enough, is about the size of an MP3 file. One particular track, for example, from a CD, is about that big, 3.6-ish megabytes. Megabytes are fairly big numbers. My first hard drive, when I was back in the 90s, that's how old I am, was a 30 megabyte hard drive. 30 megabytes, so 10 of these documents would have filled it up, and I never did fill up that hard drive. 30 megabytes was massive then. It's not massive now, because we now have rich documents with lots of pictures, lots of graphics, lots of movie content, and that is all very, very hungry of space. So 30 megabytes now isn't anywhere near enough. So after you've got your megabytes, you get 1,000 megabytes, and that's 1 gigabyte. And gigabytes are big, chunky things. HD movies, for example, high definition movies, are probably going to be about 10 gigabytes big. That's pretty big. And this humble Dell laptop has probably got a 250 gigabyte, maybe even a 500 gigabyte hard drive in it. And as a teacher, you probably rarely ever fill your hard drive. But if you're going to produce documents or take lots of photographs or make lots of movies, you're not going to email them. Remember that limit, 10 megabytes. Anything that's bigger than 10 megabytes shouldn't be going through the email system. If it's going to be bigger than 10 megabytes, burn it to a CD, burn it to a DVD, or figure out another way of doing it. On these discs, it tells you the size of the files, and it's good to get to know these kind of things. This one is a CD and 700 megabytes on there. This is a blank DVD, 4.7 gigabytes on there. Obviously not enough for an HD movie on there. That's why we need Blu-ray discs. Blu-ray discs are 25 gigabytes big. Absolutely massive, but big enough to get a high definition movie on it. So if it's going to be bigger than 10 megabytes, think about a better way of doing it. Burn it to a CD, burn it to a DVD, and you should be sweet.